Alright, today we're going to be taking a look at the new Royal Paladin trial deck. Not exactly the trial deck itself, but some of the cards that are in it. Now, a little bit of background. I have been away from Vanguard videos, and that is simply because I haven't been picking up anything new, and I felt it was unfair to you guys to watch the same crap, just pre-processed and handed back to you in a nicer, neater package. That would have been equivalent to taking some dog crap, wrapping it in tin foil, spray painting it gold, and selling it to people as earrings. It would have been wrong. Yes, that is a quote from a movie. Whoever can quote it correctly gets a cookie, I guess. I don't know. So we're going to be taking a look at the cards that make up this deck, the individual cards that make up the new Royal Paladin mechanics. And we're going to be taking a look at how well the new trial decks stack up versus the old trial decks. Now, by comparison, this is the Shadow Paladin Revenger trial deck. It's got everything you need, almost everything you need to get started. The list, as you can see, is on the bottom of the deck, but we're not going to get into it. Just going to let this hover here. If you guys can read that, cool. If not, don't worry about it because it doesn't matter. You already know what's in the trial deck, and the fact that I haven't opened it yet suggests that there might be something wrong in my head. So if you want to stop watching the video at this point, please do. Otherwise, continue on, and my madness may or may not infect you guys. Now, as I said, we'll be looking at the individual cards that make up this deck. I do not have every card in the trial deck with me, but I do have most of them here. So most of the trial deck should be represented. And we're going to go through this as cleanly and as neatly as possible. I'm not going to get into any of the triggers except for one, because I think it's an amazing reprint. If you guys have picked this deck up already, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about already. This trial deck has been out for a good week or two now. So, without further stalling for time and delay, we're going to get into the individual cards that make up just something Bushiroad has never done before. And I'm going to save a couple for last, so these are not going to be in any specific order. I'm just going to, shuffle them up, and here we go. So the first card we start with is Shining Knight Milius. This is the Forerunner starter for this trial deck, and it's got a Generation Break 1 skill. Generation Break means that if you have any cards on your Vanguard circle or in your Generation Zone that are face up, and by any cards I mean any G units. These are the pretty units with the red border instead of the black or the yellow border. But I digress. If you have any G units, and I would say that just for clarification, face up on your Gen Zone or on your Vanguard circle, you can use a skill depending on if you meet the number of required Generation Break number here. This is Gen Break 1 skill. You counterblast 1, put it in your soul, search your deck for a grade 2, and call it to rearguard, then shuffle your deck. Alright, so that's pretty powerful for a common. We've got Lunar Crescent Knight, which comes as the deck's standard 8K vanilla. All Vanguard decks have an 8K vanilla, and this, by one, I love the artwork, so it's one of my favorites so far. I like the play on the dark tones and the lighter earth tones. It's really a cool card, and especially the giant sword he's swinging above his head just kinda gives a menacing look to the whole card. Next, we've got Knight of Steel Wing, which is also a pretty cool artwork, but his skill is kind of terrible. He gets +5 when it's attacked. So basically, come on, swing at me, I'm going to get bigger, and then you're going to kill me anyway because I'm just an 11k versus your Vanguard. But yeah. Because, let's face it, the only way you would play his skill is if he were on the Vanguard circle, because, you know, Vanguard or Rearguard. Probably should have mentioned that because I've got a crappy little itty-bitty webcam. So yeah. Next up, Absolute Blade Knight Liverat, which looks like a Thundercat promotion gone wrong. The artwork on it is kinda bad, and I'm kinda questioning why he's carrying around pool cues. Just doesn't seem right. He is the deck's standard 10k vanilla grade 2. Here's something a little familiar. Archer of Heaven's Tower. She's got a Gen Break 1, and when it attacks a Vanguard, it gains +3 until the end of battle. Not the Vanguard, that unit, of course. That'd be horrible if, you know, that unit gained power when it was attacking the Vanguard. That's just dumb. Alright, I'm going to stop and continue on to Transmigration Knight Breed. Yeah, that's definitely a joke to me because I was born in the 80s, grew up during the 90s, and watched this really awesome horror flick when I was a kid called Nightbreed, Nightbreed. So yeah, definitely worth checking out, but we're not talking about movies right now, we're talking about Vanguard. So he's got a Gen Break skill 1. When it attacks a Vanguard, it gains +3, so it's identical to Archer of Heaven's Tower. The only difference is that it's a 9k versus a 7k. Rounding out some familiar cards is Azura Shooter Dragon. Gen Break 1 skill. When it attacks a Vanguard, gains +6 until the end of that battle. And then you can counterblast 2 when it's placed on Vanguard circle. If you do, you can search your deck for one grade 2 or greater card, call it to Rearguard, and then shuffle your deck. And we're getting to some really psychotic looking cards here. First up, from a long list of just wins for Bushiroad right now, is Knight of Twin Sword. Now this guy's got a really awesome Gen Break 1 skill. When it attacks, counterblast 1, and then you can call, if it's boosted rather, you can call a grade 2 card from your deck, not named Knight of Twin Sword. Then you get to shuffle. Which is incredibly insane considering the amount of power that this deck can put out with just the common cards in it. With just the grade 3, you get literally an identical skill. And the reason I put him in front of the grade 3 is because, well, this is in the stack of win cards. Next up, we've got Blue Sky Knight Altmill, who is on the surface a standard 11k Vanguard for most trial decks. You're like, oh, okay, 11k, that's kind of basic. But he's got a Gen Break 2 skill, which I'll get to in just a moment. But he's got this really wicked stride skill, rather, that when you stride, you counterblast 1, choose up to 2 cards from your hand, call them as separate rearguard circles, then choose up to 2 of your units, and they get +5 until the end of turn. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that is insane. I don't think I've seen a unit do that in a long time. And the Gen Break 2 skill definitely reminds me of Nebula Lord Dragon. So I'm kind of happy that I got these trial decks. This guy gains +5 in your to everything in your front row if you have 2 G units in your generation zone. Next up, we're looking at what I started the video with, Shrouded Divine Knight Gablade, which it's a really awesome card. Now, in order to stride, you need to discard cards that are equal to or greater than grade 3 from your hand into your drop zone, which already sounds like you're giving up a lot, but that right there underneath the grade, that's a triple drive check. So let's say if you discard 1 card, you discard a grade 3 to get stride off, you're looking at a net profit of 2 cards. If you discarded 2 cards, you're still looking at a net profit of 1 card, which is intense from the way that stride works. Now, he's got an auto skill that when it attacks a vanguard, you can search your deck for up to 1 grade 2 or greater card, call it to rear guard, then shuffle your deck. And you don't even have to worry too much, because when you stride, your opponent is almost always going to give you the attack, because it's just way too much to guard with just normal cards in your hand. But that's why each generation trial deck comes with 2 copies of a perfect guard. In this case, it's Rainbow Guardian. Sounds like a character from a cutesy 80s kids show, but we're not here to debate that either. This is your standard, typical perfect guard with an atypical feature. It is not foil. Look at that. It is common. It is straight up common. It's not even single rare foil. Bushiroad's like, oh, well, we already have 4 foils in the deck. And as you can see, I pulled the sleeve out up to here. There is no foil on this thing whatsoever. But yeah, it's just, this is a huge win for Bushiroad. If they would have started doing this from the start, including like a non-foil E-Salt in the Blaster Blade deck, that would have been awesome. Or, you know what, just any type of perfect guard, any type of sentinel at all would have been awesome. I understand why they didn't do it, but this just makes the decks to me more desirable. I was more than happy to get 4 copies of this trial deck just to get some perfect guards to go along with it. I've got, see, I gave away 2 copies of the perfect guard, so I've got 6 copies left. Not a huge deal. And then another piece of win for Bushiroad, in my personal opinion, is this Margle print. Margle, you may remember from, I believe it was Descent of the King of Knights, set 1. And you put this unit in your soul, choose a unit in your rear guard, or choose any of your active units, and it gives them +3 until the end of turn. I have to hold this thing at an angle, because if I don't, I'm not going to really see it all that well, because all of that red obstructs the actual artwork. So showing you this guy on camera really does this thing so little justice, it's not even funny. So final thoughts of the deck is that I think Bushiroad went out of their way to try and coax new players into playing, and trying to maintain at the same time their original player base. Now, when you can do those 2 things, you will only succeed in making your product thrive if you are successful in pulling off those 2 tasks at once. Whether or not this will be the end all for every trial deck to come out from this point on, remains to be seen, and whether or not it'll be the end all for Bushiroad actually bringing in new players under their flagship product is still up in the air. We still don't know what's going on with that. But as far as I'm concerned, Bushiroad did a lot to please a lot of its fan base with these new trial decks. I am not a huge fan of the Stride mechanic. I will say this: it adds a level of super competitiveness to the game that you only have two choices. You either play into Stride if you're going to continue playing. You either play with Stride, or you just don't include any grade 2 or any grade 3s or above in your build, which is almost impossible when you consider that a lot of builds require your grade 3s for the twin drive check. Because let's face it, when your opponent has got 3 drive checks or 2 drive checks and you're only doing 1, they're going to have a huge advantage on you, unless you can sort of figure out how to close the gap there. But I digress. This is turning into more of a tirade than anything. But I do think Bushiroad has gone out of their way to try and please the fan base while trying to create a new fan base. And I think they're heading in the right direction, but mechanics like Stride will ultimately only harm the game, because you're going to create an air of super competitiveness that just does not end well. But we'll see how everything turns out. So until next time, this is the Casual Game Guy. You guys have a great time.